CBS NCIS is officially the last TV franchise of its kind. CBS's NCIS franchise is the last of its kind, with a legacy that's out of reach for newer streaming and broadcast TV series. The original series debuted in 2003, introducing television audiences to the Naval Criminal Investigative Service and focusing on Washington's major case response team. The series has overcome many setbacks since having just wrapped NCIS Season 23. The series soft-launched earlier that year, with the backdoor pilot of NCIS on JAG introducing MCRT, helmed by Leroy Jethro Gibbs, Mark Harmon, and including Anthony DiNozzo, Michael Weatherly, Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard, and Abby Ciuto, Polly Perrette. Despite most original characters departing since 2003, namely Gibbs in NCIS Season 19, the series continues to build a lasting legacy aside from the Law & Order and CSI franchises, which have less modern success. Other franchises can't compete with NCIS. On air for over 2 decades, the original series is preparing for NCIS Season 24 and has inspired many spin-offs, including NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS New Orleans, NCIS Hawaii, NCIS Sydney, and NCIS Origins, expanding the television universe over time. The original series alone has produced more than 20 seasons and over 500 episodes, with the 500th episode of NCIS occurring in Season 23, and ushering in director Leon Vance's Rocky Carroll death after nearly 2 decades with the series. That said, NCIS's success lies not only in its continued future, but also in the rich legacy of its past. After a show crosses the 100-episode mark, it becomes viable for long-term syndication, meaning it's bought and distributed by smaller networks for reruns. With 20 seasons and 2 other spin-offs that have passed the threshold for syndication, NCIS earns revenue not only through advertising on its current seasons, but also through syndication and licensing deals. Therefore, NCIS's revenue comes from its original broadcast and reruns, as well as international licensing deals, streaming services, and physical media and digital purchases and rentals. It's the kind of abundance that streaming series can only dream of, considering that many only contain a few seasons of about 8 or 10 episodes each, landing well below the syndication threshold. Moreover, with 23 seasons of self-contained episodes, NCIS has exorbitant rewatch potential, adding to its long-term value. As a classic crime procedural series designed for weekly broadcasts, each episode of NCIS can be watched and enjoyed individually. In contrast, streaming series rely on highly serialized stories that must be watched in chronological order to enjoy each segment. In addition to its legacy, which gives it long-term value, the new seasons of NCIS are still widely watched on network TV, with the show approaching Season 24. Moreover, the franchise shows no signs of slowing down, with a new spin-off, NCIS New York, starring LL Cool J and Scott Conn, set to premiere on CBS in fall 2026. While the series is still adjusting after Harmon's leading character, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, exited in 2021, the past couple of seasons of NCIS have ushered in an exciting new era of storytelling, with Alden Parker, Gary Cole, leading the team in Gibbs's place. However, Gibbs quietly returned to NCIS for the first time in years. In Season 23, NCIS Season 23 ushers in huge changes that will affect Season 24, including Vance's death and Gabriel LaRoche's Seamus Dever return, with the former Inspector General and NCIS Deputy Director, as well as Timothy McGee's Sean Murray nemesis, now vying for NCIS Director Vance's chair. That said, many fans believe that Timothy McGee should replace Vance. CBS will air NCIS, New York, and NCIS Origins in the fall, making way for the franchise's latest spin-off, NCIS Sydney won't release until next year, clearing room for NCIS New York's full-season episode order. On the other hand, NCIS Origins in Sydney will have fewer installments, with Origins wrapping in the fall and Sydney premiering in the spring. Still, things are heating up in the flagship, especially after Nick Torres, Wilmer Valderrama, confronted McGee's son, Mateo, Patrick Keelaher, in NCIS Season 23's finale, which ended with a gunshot. Showrunner Stephen D. Binder recently revealed that someone was hit, but that person has survived. Moreover, Valderrama predicts a major casting shakeup for NCIS Season 24 with new additions. In an era dominated by streaming giants, shortened seasons, cinematic universes, and endless reboots, one television institution continues to defy every industry trend imaginable. While many once mighty franchises have faded, fragmented, or disappeared entirely, CBS NCIS now stands alone as the last true television franchise of its kind. For more than 2 decades, NCIS has survived shifting audiences, changing technologies, network upheavals, and fierce competition from streaming platforms. It has outlasted dozens of rival procedural dramas, weathered cast departures that once seemed impossible to overcome, and continuously reinvented itself without abandoning the formula that made it a phenomenon in the first place. And in 2026, the reality has become impossible to ignore. There is simply nothing else on television quite like NCIS. Unlike modern franchises that are carefully engineered from the beginning, NCIS evolved organically. The original series premiered in 2003 as a spin-off of JAG. Few could have predicted that the military procedural would eventually become one of the most successful television properties in history. Even fewer imagined that it would expand into a sprawling universe spanning multiple cities, generations, and timelines. What makes NCIS unique is that every expansion felt earned. NCIS Los Angeles brought high-octane espionage and action. NCIS New Orleans infused the formula with Southern charm and culture. NCIS Hawaii transported viewers to paradise while maintaining the franchise's signature investigative style. Most recently, NCIS Sydney expanded the universe internationally, while NCIS Origins traveled backward in time to explore the early years of Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Together, these series created something rare, a network television universe that remained interconnected while allowing each installment to develop its own identity. Today, with many sister shows concluded, the flagship NCIS, Sydney, and NCIS Origins continue carrying the torch, preserving a franchise model that television rarely attempts anymore. For decades, broadcast television thrived on procedural empires. Franchises such as CSI, Law and Order, and Criminal Minds dominated ratings and produced multiple successful spin-offs. Networks relied heavily on these dependable brands because audiences appreciated self-contained storytelling and familiar characters. But the television landscape has changed dramatically. Streaming platforms prioritize binge-friendly serialization. Seasons have shrunk from 24 episodes to 8 or 10. Production costs continue rising, making expansive franchises increasingly difficult to sustain. Many once dominant brands have either scaled back or transformed significantly. Even surviving procedural universes operate differently than they did during their peak years. Crossovers are rarer, episode counts are smaller, cast turnover is faster, audience habits have fundamentally shifted. Yet NCIS continues producing lengthy seasons, filled with standalone investigations, while still weaving emotional character arcs throughout the narrative. It remains unapologetically traditional in a business increasingly focused on reinvention. That steadfast commitment may be exactly why viewers continue returning year after year. Most television shows struggle to survive the departure of a major star. NCIS has survived several. The exits of Sasha Alexander, Cote de Pablo, Michael Weatherly, Polly Perrette, and eventually Mark Harmon could have ended the series outright. After all, Harmon was not merely the show's lead, he was its defining face for nearly 2 decades. Losing Gibbs seemed unimaginable. Industry observers predicted ratings collapse. Fans worried the show's identity would disappear. Instead, NCIS adapted. The series introduced new characters, expanded existing relationships, and embraced an ensemble approach. Actors including Sean Murray, Wilmer Valderrama, Katrina Law, Brian Dietzen, and Gary Cole helped usher the franchise into a new era. Remarkably, audiences stayed. That resilience speaks to something larger than any individual performer. NCIS succeeded because viewers invested not only in specific characters, but in the world itself, the camaraderie, humor, mystery, and emotional core that define the franchise. Few shows ever achieve that level of institutional longevity. Even fewer maintain it for over 20 years. Ironically, one reason NCIS remains unique today is the enduring shadow of Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Mark Harmon's legendary character continues influencing the franchise despite his reduced on-screen presence. His rules, leadership philosophy, and emotional legacy remain embedded in the DNA of every series. Meanwhile, NCIS Origins has introduced an entirely new perspective on Gibbs by exploring his formative years. Rather than simply resurrecting a beloved character for nostalgia, the franchise chose a more ambitious route, examining how Gibbs became the man audiences spent decades watching. It's a strategy that perfectly encapsulates what makes NCIS different. Instead of endlessly recycling the past, the franchise expands it. Modern television often feels temporary. Shows debut with enormous hype only to disappear after 1 or 2 seasons. Streaming cancellations have become commonplace, leaving storylines unresolved and fans frustrated. By contrast, NCIS offers something increasingly rare: stability. Viewers know what they're getting. There will be compelling investigations. There will be moments of humor inside the squad room. There will be emotional conversations among teammates who genuinely care for one another. And there will almost certainly be surprising twists before the hour concludes. That consistency has become a competitive advantage. At a time when entertainment options feel overwhelming, familiarity can be comforting. For millions of viewers worldwide, NCIS remains appointment television precisely because it delivers on expectations while still finding ways to evolve. The phrase, "they don't make them like this anymore," is often overused. In the case of NCIS, however, it feels entirely appropriate. A long-running broadcast procedural with more than 20 seasons, multiple interconnected spin-offs, annual crossover potential, and a global fan base is no longer standard industry practice. It's an exception, perhaps even an anomaly. Television's future will undoubtedly continue moving towards streaming-first models, shorter seasons, and limited series storytelling. New franchises will emerge, but they are unlikely to replicate the old network blueprint that made NCIS a cultural institution. And that's what makes the franchise so remarkable. Love it or not, NCIS represents the final surviving example of a television era built on consistency, longevity, and weekly storytelling. As competitors come and go, one thing remains clear: CBS NCIS isn't merely enduring, it's preserving a television tradition that may never exist again.